Welcome to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Kentucky attorney Jeff Roberts has over 25 years of experience. He'll provide answers to your questions related to personal injury and automobile accidents, workers' compensation claims, and Social Security disability benefits. Let's join Jeff for this episode. And friends, welcome back. We are in Murray, Calloway County with attorney Jeff Roberts, and today we're going to talk about bad weather conditions. Jeff, you do a tremendous amount of automobile accident litigation down here in Western Kentucky. And let's kind of jump in. The weather is changing, and I guess it's time to kind of remind people, hey, be ready.
Exactly, it is. We are going to start having some winter weather in the coming up on us here, and even without it being snow or ice on the road, with heavy rains and things that we get here in Western Kentucky this time of the year, driving conditions can get bad very quickly.
Yeah, I think so. And the thing is, when the holidays are around, everybody's, distracted. There's all sorts of stuff going on. It might be the kids, getting in the back seat, getting excited about stuff and whining about stuff or whatever.
Are we there yet?
Are we there yet? All that kind of stuff. I know in episode 66, we talked about avoiding traffic accidents during the holidays, and we were joking about the casserole and the green bean casserole and stuff like that in the back. There's a lot of distractions this time of year. And obviously, when the roads are clear, it's a little bit easier than if you're on snow and ice and you've got it coming down and you're still dealing with those distractions. So unfortunately, bad things happen. And, in Western Kentucky down here, we've got a lot of roads with a lot of truck traffic, see a lot of cargo traffic going through here. And you end up getting into situations where not so much motorcycle accidents this time of year, although you're a motorcyclist and from time to time, I'm sure you get tempted on that sunny day. But right about now, it gets serious, and I'm hoping that through the information that we're going to deliver today, that people will take a few minutes to take a deep breath and just understand, okay, wait a minute, the weather has changed, so maybe my habits ought to change too as it relates to my driving.
True. And it can change fairly quickly from that standpoint. In this time of the year, you could go to work and, frankly, in Kentucky, there's the old saying, if you don't like the weather, wait 30 minutes or whatever. Yeah. And it can be the case here this time of the year. You could go to work and it be a nice sunny day when you get to work, and when your work shift's over with, you've got snow and ice on the roadway because of the way the weather has changed. And your driving on those conditions has to change. It's just, you cannot drive frankly, you shouldn't drive during a rainstorm the way you drive on a bright sunny day with the roads dry. You should not be driving on snow and icy roads in that regard. And, I've told people when my daughter started driving, my wife wasn't sure about my doing this, but when she started driving and we had a snowy day, I put her in the vehicle, I put her behind the wheel, and I said, we're going to go out and let you drive on these conditions, because frankly, they need to learn to drive on those conditions with a parent or whoever's teaching them to drive sitting in there with them to explain to them what they need to be doing, because it letting off the gas and letting yourself start slowing down as you come to a stop sign much sooner and let the vehicle do its own slowing down instead of hitting the brake is something that you may not think of if you're not used to driving on those conditions.
Or to your point, an inexperienced driver who just really hasn't been through this, enough.
Yes, exactly. An inexperienced driver who has never been told that. So, they're told as you approach the stop sign, you hit the brakes to stop before the stop sign. Well, if they don't know, they got to start slowing down and not hit the brakes as hard when they're on ice or snow, then they're not going to stop. And that can cause a wreck and cause them to be injured, cause your loved one to be injured, and cause them to injure somebody else's loved one.
Well, I can remember my grandfather taught me how to drive, and we went out.
He's to blame.
Well, more or less. Definitely not me. No. So we went out into a parking lot when it was snow and had some ice out there, And he was showing me that, when the back end of your car starts whipping around, you actually steer toward that instead of away from it as a way to kind of recover. Little things like that. I mean, you can't get that by just reading the book before you go take the driving test. So, if you've got the opportunity with your kiddos, if we get some snow and ice, this is a good time to help them learn some of those lessons in a safe manner.
Right. Yes, exactly. And if you start, if you're on ice and you start sliding, turning your wheels not going to make a whole lot of difference.
Yeah.
Worst thing you can do is hit your brake hard, because that's just going to do it. The wheels turning will slow you down more than hitting your brake does 90% of the time on ice anyway. That has been my experience from there. And there's just, there are certain things to do when you're driving in those. First thing is to slow down. Yeah. You've got to slow down when you're driving on that. And if the roads are real bad, don't go.
Right.
If you can avoid going, don't go when the roads are when you got snow and ice on the roads. If you have to go, give yourself plenty of time. Get leave quite a bit earlier than what you normally would on normal roads, so that you can slow way down and keep going slow from there. And I've had people where I'd be driving on those conditions, and somebody passed me because they thought I was going too slow, and I'm shaking my head thinking, go for it if that's
what you want to do.
Yeah. But I suspect if I follow you far enough, I'm going to probably see you somewhere you don't want to be. Yeah. When you do that, slow down, and if somebody around you wants to go around you, let them go around you.
Absolutely. There's no reason to get worked up about it. Just let them go, and hopefully, focus on getting you and your passengers home safely or to wherever you're going. In episode 80, we talked about Kentucky tractor trailer accident factors. I mean, we kind of looked at some of the data and some of the different things that lead up to collisions with these big trucks, and unfortunately those things are typically catastrophic. They very serious injuries can come out of that. But one of the things I believe we talked about was extending that distance between the front of your car and the back of the car in front of you. Give yourself some extra room there, because you're going to have to slow down, but you're also going to take some time to stop, especially if you hit an icy patch. I mean, this seems like common sense, but I'm amazed when it's early in the winter season, we haven't remembered that stuff yet. And so I love the fact that you're actually taking the time to do this type of a podcast episode.
Yeah, and that's it. You've got to give yourself a lot more distance between you and the car in front of you as well. Take a lot more time to slow down. And frankly, what you've got to also remember when you're driving especially in the winter conditions, is most of the roadway can be clear and dry and no ice on it, but then you come to a spot where there's a tree overhang and the sun hadn't got to that part yet, and it could be wet, but not. But you get to a spot where there's a tree overhang, and then all of a sudden you got a patch of ice that you weren't expecting, and you've got black ice that sometimes you just can't tell that's what it is. If the temperature is 50 degrees, you probably not going to run into ice in that situation. But if the temperature is below freezing, there could, even if you don't realize it, there could be ice on that roadway, and you got to be very careful.
Well, it's just, we've all stepped out on some pavement or a sidewalk when it's been just scalding hot in the summertime. Same thing happens in the winter. That road surface is going to get colder overnight. So, yeah, it could be 50 degrees now, but maybe that road surface hasn't actually warmed up enough to fully melt the ice. So, I mean, little things like that. I mean, you've got to be careful, and I love your advice of slowing down. The one thing I always, even now, my kids are out of college, but I still tell them, hey, is your seatbelt on?
Yes.
This is the time. Get the seatbelt on.
Yeah.
I'm amazed at how many people are still not doing that regularly.
Right. Yeah. You wear the seatbelt regardless of the weather conditions and the road conditions. You should be wearing your seatbelt. Seatbelts save lives. There's no doubt about that. And so you should definitely be taking care, making sure you do that. And frankly, check your car over. If your tires are slick and you don't have hardly any tread on those, and you get on snow, it's going to be worse than if you had good tread on your tires. So if your tires need replacing, replace them now before you're driving in snow.
Yeah, that's tread wear is something one thing my dad taught me when I was young is, hey, look, every time you're filling up the gas, walk around your car. It's a good opportunity to look at your tires, make sure things are fine. Do they need air in them? I mean, all that kind of stuff. But the tread wear is there's all sorts of stuff that can happen that you just don't notice.
Right.
But when I'm filling up my gas tank, I still do that. I get out and I walk around because I just want to visually inspect and figure it out. And slicks are great when you're on the racetrack. I'm not a race car driver, but when I'm going down that, well, then again, maybe you've seen me on the interstate. I don't know. I'm not admitting to anything. Jeff is my attorney. I'll let you help me out with that. But no, I just there's so many little bitty things that add up to a lot of big things at the end of the day. We've talked about slowing down. We've talked about safety. The seatbelt. We've talked about checking your air and things like that. But I love the fact that you said give yourself some time, because I think what that does is that allows you to have to lower that anxiety, lower that frustration, lower that temperature, so that you're not really just letting that anger or that frustration boil over while you're trying to drive in traffic, especially in bad conditions. Whether it's rain, whether it's snow, or whether it's ice and just a winter storm. Having that extra time buffer, it's the little things like that just really add up to let you get there safely.
Exactly. And yeah, those are key factors. Another thing that I see that I don't understand it. I understand it's cold outside. I understand you don't want to stand out in the cold. I'm extremely cold nature. I hate cold weather. It's already colder than I care for at this time of the year. But it is when we have snow and ice, and I will see people driving down the road that has a 12-inch by 12-inch part of their windshield that's been cleaned off, and the rest has got ice all over it.
Yeah.
And you can't see through it. And if your vehicle is outside and it gets ice on the windshield, on the side windows, even on the back window, in my opinion, clean it all off. Clean the snow off. Clean it off all the way across so that you can see traffic coming around you. From if you're driving and you come up to the stop sign and you think if you can't see, if you're pulling out on the road that doesn't stop and your side windows are iced up or you can't see the traffic, you could pull out in front of somebody and cause yourself injury and cause them injury. And I see people do it every year when there's ice, and I'll see them have just a very small little section of their windshield that is clear. And if you got to get out there, crank it up and let the defrost do its job before you have to get out and leave. And luckily in my house I got a garage, so I don't have to worry about it in the morning. Right, but here at the office, there's been several times when I've left in the afternoon that I had to get out there and scrape all the windshields off on my vehicle, front, back, and side, so I could drive home. And it's just, take the time to do that, because a few extra minutes there is a whole lot better than spending several minutes in an emergency room.
No, I'm with you. And this is, for drivers out there now, or for parents even, this would be a good time to go out to Walmart, go out to AutoZone, go out to Kroger, wherever, and make sure you've got an ice scraper in the car. Sometimes they get lost. Sometimes they got broken. Hey, I'll replace that next year. Well, next year's here.
Yeah.
So, this is a good time to really check out some of your safety equipment. Make sure that's good to go.
And know where it's at.
Oh, and know where it's at. Yeah, don't leave it in the trunk. Put it in the back seat, maybe.
Well, exactly. But even if it's in the trunk, know that it's in the trunk, because if you're at work and then it's ice is over, then you're spending a lot of time trying to find it, and then when you find it, you're cold and say, "Well, I just want to get a little bit done and get on the road," thinking that's enough. If you know where it's at, you get to it quicker, and you're not going to be as frozen by the time you get the job done.
Yeah, and again, that little bit of extra time may make all the difference, and that's the important stuff. We don't get huge volumes of snow here, but we do get ice. We get freezing rain. And again, the roads may be clear in the morning, but maybe something happens, during the day that you're just totally unprepared for. I like to throw, a blanket in the car, make sure I've got, an extra jacket or a toboggan or something like that. I kind of prep for that stuff. That's just the way my dad was military, so I kind of think about that stuff. But a lot of people don't, and I see people out in the coldest weather with maybe a windbreaker on. Well, I didn't think about it. You don't have Weather Channel,
Yeah.
I mean, think it through. But those little extra safety tips can help, because what if you're out on the interstate?
Yeah.
It can be a while before a first responder actually shows up. Take a few minutes to prepare.
Well, that's true, absolutely. If having something warm in the vehicle, because frankly, you may be fine and be in your car, but then if something comes up, you've got to get out for some reason. You have that there. Another thing that I am very bad during the summertime, especially, of letting my car get down to E before I stop at the gas station. Wintertime, I don't tend to do that because I never know, and I don't want to ever run out of gas. If you're traveling, you don't have to be traveling on an interstate, but if you're on an interstate and there's a wreck in front of you, and you've got to come to a stop because there's no exits between you and that, and you're sitting there you could sit there for an hour or longer, and if you're on E, that can be a problem. But it can happen the same even on smaller county highways where you've got to maybe turn around and you weren't expecting to do that, and add several miles to your trip that you weren't expecting. So wintertime, I usually keep my gas tank full, or at least fill it up much quicker than I have. My wife is just opposite. If it's below half a tank, she thinks she's on empty and got to fill the tank up. And that's just the way it is. Wintertime, though, that's another thing that you don't think about, especially if you're going to be traveling any kind of distance and on the interstates. Fill it up, keep it full enough that if you have to sit on an interstate for a little bit of time, you can keep yourself warm.
Yeah, that makes sense. I look back over the last 2-3 years of all the podcast episodes we've done, and I don't think we've ever really talked about the gas tank level. That's a great tip. That's one thing that
Was it Virginia not too long ago, if I recall? I think it was Virginia, somewhere around Washington, D.C., where they had that snowstorm that shut the interstate, and there were people out for several hours stuck out on that interstate there. Now, obviously, you don't ever want to be in that situation, and even full tank, that's going to be a problem. But though that's hopefully never going to happen in Western Kentucky, but it's certainly a potential. But it's just better to be safe than sorry.
Well, I think so. And Jeff, this is another thing is, whenever you get a chance, make sure your windshield wiper fluid is filled up. Because sometimes when you get the salt and stuff that sprays up on the window, you've really got to do that. I make sure that every time I get my oil change, obviously at Valvoline or something like that, they fill it up. But it's not a bad thing in your garage or wherever you keep some stuff like that before you go out, maybe in a closet. Check your fluids, from time to time, just to make sure you've got that. Because again, I've gone down the road on an empty fluid situation, and you can't see. I mean,
No.
you literally just can't see. So these are safety tips as the weather is changing that you might want to be thinking about. It doesn't take that long to do it, but you've actually got to take some action, right? I mean,
Right.
Hey, that's a great idea. I'll get around to it. Well, today's that day.
Exactly, and that's something that you don't think about. Even you use the wiper fluid as you're driving down, and you don't think, okay, I need to check and see what the level is on that. And hopefully, when you get your oil change, they check that for you. But some places may not, and I frankly, it's something I do keep an eye on periodically. But I probably need to look at it a little more frequently than I do.
Well, and the last time I got my oil change, I took your advice and I did ask them to check the blinker fluid as well. And they look. I guess a lot of people don't ask for that, but thanks for the tip, because they took a little extra time trying to figure that out. Made all the difference, evidently.
Only cost $100 extra to have that blinker fluid.
I had a coupon, but I do appreciate that one.
Yeah,
but
and you get winter air in the tires too.
Yeah. I got to go back and ask. Come to think of it. No, but Jeff.
Yeah, we are teasing on that. Just
Yeah. Stay off of Facebook looking for driving tips in the winter. There's all sorts of memes out there. I love them.
True.
But Jeff, you've handled traffic accidents for many years. You've got over 30 years now of experience of handling these, and you've handled some of them across the state because you're licensed to cover the entire state.
Correct.
But I mean, you've dealt with anything from the big tractor trailer accidents down to the fender benders just on the city streets. They're-
18 wheels to 2 wheels.
Yeah, well, yeah. Come to think about that, because we've done some episodes on bicycle and pedestrian accidents. Hey, no wheels.
No wheels, that's
you go.
right.
But yeah, I mean, these are never something you plan for, but they do happen. You've got two offices. I mean, you've got the primary office that we always talk about right here in Murray, but you've also got a second office.
I do. I have a second office in Hopkinsville. Opened it up last year. It's been a little over a year that I've had that office up there. And it's just allowed me to. I've always had a lot of clients up in that area and even up in the Bowling Green area, and it's allowed me to have a spot to meet with them and them not have to travel as much, and it's worked out well from that, and it's a good location. I enjoy that office.
Well, the thing is, you've really got one contact number, which I thought was kind of interesting the way you set this up. You've got an 800 number, but you've got one local number that rings from both offices. I mean, which makes it real convenient. So you don't have to think about, well, do I call this one for the Hopkinsville office or do I call that one for the Murray office? No, it's one number.
Exactly. One number, 270-753-0053 is the office number. You call that office, and they will pick up. Whether I'm at the Murray office or if I'm at the Hopkinsville office, they can get in touch with me always from there, and we can make that contact. I do have the 800 number. It rings the exact same phone, but it's 1-800-844-5108. And so, and by phone is the best way to reach me. If I'm not able to take your call, they will give me a message, or if you want to leave me a voicemail, that you can leave me a voicemail, whichever you prefer in that regard. But if I can't talk to you right then, I will give you a call back.
And Jeff, some people may not be as familiar with the personal injury claim as it relates to attorney fees. And that's always something people are worried about. They think lawyers are really, really expensive. And in some situations they are. But in personal injury, you handle it differently. You handle it on what's called a contingency fee basis. And actually, you take that a little bit further. Do you want to kind of talk about that arrangement?
Sure. On any type of claim, whether it's car wreck, tractor trailer, motorcycle accident, any of those cases, I handle on a contingency fee basis. A contingency fee basis means that I get paid at the end of the case. The fee is contingent upon recovery. The fee is a percentage of the recovery. So the better I do for you, the better I do for me. So there's a financial incentive for me to do the best for you as well. Some attorneys have gone up to 40% on those type of cases. I'm still at 1/3 and don't intend to change that anytime soon anyway. That's what the attorney fee is on these type of cases. In addition to the attorney fee, I advance the litigation expenses, and those are also contingent upon recovery, which means that if there is not a recovery, you don't have to pay me an attorney fee. You also do not have to reimburse me my expenses. If we are successful in the claim, then I get paid the attorney fee and reimburse my expenses in that situation.
And friends, this is a really important scenario to understand about how Jeff handles those. Because again, the great thing about contingency fee law or contingency fee basis law in Kentucky is you have access to justice. You have access to an attorney. You have access to the court systems, and you don't have to pay up front to get that. And it's just really, if you've been injured in an accident, you need to probably get an attorney involved. And Jeff will take that call. Jeff will listen to you talk about your situation. He'll answer your questions. And it's not like the meter's running. I mean, this is, you're trying to figure out, do you like Jeff's approach? Do you want to hire Jeff? And Jeff's also looking at the case going, is this one that I think I can take and be successful with?
Right, and that is the contingency fee opens up the courthouse doors for everybody. It means, without the contingency fee, the only people who could pursue these claims are people who are rich or have a lot of money. And that is, the contingency fee allows anybody and everybody to have legal representation in these type of matters. That's one of the reasons why there are occasionally efforts by some on the insurance industry side to try to limit or to cut back on the contingency fee arrangements or to eliminate contingency fees, because they know if they're able to do that, fewer and fewer people can pursue these claims. Now, the premiums aren't going to go down, but their profits will go up.
Yeah. Now, if you want to learn more about contingency fees, in episode 56, we did a full episode just talking about that arrangement. And again, how Jeff may be a little different from others in terms of the way he handles contingency fees. So it's really good information, and I think it's something that definitely, if you want to figure that out, you can listen to episode 56. The link will be in the show notes right below where you're listening to this. You can also go to his website, jeffrobertslaw.com, and just go to the podcast tab and look for episode 56, or out to Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and a bunch of others. Jeff, the one thing that I know about icy roads and snowy roads and bad weather conditions is you're probably going to end up having some type of fender bender if you're not careful. And when you do, you might start feeling sore the next few days. I mean, and you've talked a lot in previous episodes about if you're feeling bad, you need to go seek medical care. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? And also, let's talk about that insurance that you already had that you may not be aware of called PIP.
Correct. Yeah, frequently, a lot of times after the wreck, I'll get the police report and it will say no injuries reported at the scene. When somebody's involved in a wreck, even more significant wrecks, but especially some of the more fender bender where there's not as much property damage involved in it, but the person, their adrenaline is pumping. And they don't, they're focused on all these other things. They're really not focused on themselves. They've got their adrenaline running through their veins at that point, and they don't realize that they're injured. Usually it is, or what I see frequently is later that evening or the next day. They are sore. They may have a headache, and it kind of keeps progressing from there. It starts with soreness and gets to more pain and things of that nature. And people will frequently not seek medical treatment when they, the next day when they wake up and they're sore and think, okay, I'm just sore, everything's going to be fine, it's going to go away. And then 3 weeks, 4 weeks down the road, they finally say, okay, this isn't going away, and start seeking medical treatment. And then we have to explain that to the insurance company. It occurs frequently. So they say it all the time, but they still always will come out and say, well, they didn't seek treatment until a month after the accident, so that clearly wasn't from the accident. So if you are hurting the next day, 2 days afterwards, even a week after, when you start hurting, seek out the medical treatment, then go to your family doctor, go to the emergency room if you think you need to go to the emergency room, or go to urgent care, and make sure you tell them about the wreck. Say I was in a wreck yesterday, I was in a wreck 2 days ago, and I've been sore. I woke up the next day and I'm sore, and I just thought I needed to come in and get that checked out, because you don't know what's going on. If it's strained muscles, that's fine, and they will tell you that. If it's something more serious, the sooner you get it treated, the better your recovery is likely going to be. And it's the same even with strained muscles. The sooner you get that treated, the better your recovery is going to be, and the quicker you're going to be out of pain.
Well, Jeff, I think when a lot of people are considering medical treatment, right about now, I mean, the economy is a little rough, and they're worried about, well, am I going to get hit with those extra bills? How am I going to do that? But in Kentucky, we have something called PIP insurance or PIP coverage. It's also called no-fault coverage. Do you want to explain that? Because there's some misconceptions about what that really means.
Yeah, no-fault or PIP coverage or basic reparations benefits, all the same name for all different names for the same coverage. And basically what that is, a long time ago, Kentucky passed those laws, and it is, when you're in a wreck, the vehicle you are in is responsible for the first $10,000 of medical bills and or lost wages. It covers other things, but primarily medical and or lost wages is what it's used for. So if you're in a wreck and then you want to go to urgent care, the car insurance that you're in should pay that bill. If you go to the emergency room, it's going to pay that bill. Up to $10,000, it's going to pay on the medical bills. You shouldn't be out co-pays, deductibles, anything. Now, sometimes people submit it on health insurance, and that's perfectly fine. We can deal with getting the health insurance reimbursed later, so don't think you're doing any kind of insurance fraud if you've been turned in on your health insurance instead of the car insurance, because you're not. And we can deal with that at the end, but don't let I can't afford to go to the doctor to keep you from going to the doctor, because you have that $10,000 of coverage to pay for medical treatment. And a lot of people think, well, why is my car insurance paying for my medical treatment? Why in the at-fault driver's car insurance? And that's because that is part of Kentucky law. the at-fault driver's insurance is ultimately going to pay. They're going to reimburse your car insurance, but Kentucky put it in there that the vehicle you're in at the time pays initially, and then when you determine who's at fault, that gets reimbursed. That just keeps the insurance companies from arguing your driver was the one at fault, so we're not going to pay your driver's medical bills, and then the other one saying, no, your driver was at fault, and we're not paying anybody's medical bills either, and nobody's medical bills getting paid. So that prevents that from happening.
Yeah, so you don't have to wait till negligence is proven. That's, again, why we call it no-fault coverage, right?
Correct.
It doesn't matter who's at fault.
Exactly. That's the reason some people refer to it as no-fault coverage.
Right. And what I found interesting, you explained this several episodes ago, it not only applies to the driver, but there's up to $10,000 for each passenger in the car as well.
Correct. Yes. Every person in the car has $10,000 of coverage, and if you're a pedestrian, you're still covered under that. If you're struck by a motor vehicle, it's the vehicle that makes contact with you that is responsible in that situation.
And of course, Jeff, because this might be my own insurance paying this, the question comes up, well, is that going to raise my rates because I filed a no-fault or a PIP claim?
And
Actually,
it's not.
It's not.
No, it's not going to. There's a regulation directly on point that says they don't raise the rates for that. And so that's not going to raise your rates. Don't let that be a concern about going to seek medical treatment and turning it in on your own health or your car insurance, thinking that it's going to raise your rates. It's not going to affect the rates.
Right. Fantastic. Well, Jeff, it's always good to get down to Murray to see you. It's always good to sit down and break down some of these complex legal issues. I mean, I love the way you explain them because it's fairly straightforward. There's common sense in this, but the law can be intimidating, especially thinking, wow, I've got to go hire an attorney. That's going to be expensive. Well, not in an injury case. It's a contingency fee. Things like that people just probably don't understand fully because they haven't had to go through this. Well, that's what I love about these podcasts, and that's why we put them out on Facebook so people can share them. That's why we put them out on YouTube so, again, people can watch them and share them out there. That's why we put them on the website and, Spotify and iHeartRadio and all these other places. We want this good information, this understandable information to be out there. And if you have additional questions, if you've had a situation that maybe you need to talk to an injury attorney, Jeff, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you again?
The best way is to call me, 270-753-0053 or 1-800-844-5108.
Outstanding. Well, Jeff, as we start to get into the holiday season here, I want to wish you and your family the best, and I look
You
forward
as
to
well.
Thank you, buddy. I look forward to seeing you here in another couple of weeks.
Yes. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Jeff will return in 2 weeks. Until then, he invites you to visit jeffrobertslaw.com and follow his firm on Facebook. At the Roberts Law Office, you'll find a history of small town service and big city results.